used to Zoom. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Sunday night call. It's April 18th, 2021, and we're on chapter 8 of the Game of Life on intuition and guidance. So as we do every week, we'll check in with everybody and see what's new and good for the week. Whoever wants to go first.
I have a quick question. Are you going to go live on Facebook too? You know you can do that, right?
Oh,
If you want to, I'm just letting you know.
yes. How do we do that?
There's a little button somewhere.
Who? There isn't.
There isn't.
No. Oh, there is not.
Okay.
Because we're on Zoom now.
Yeah, once you go on Zoom, you can like share to Facebook Live. There might be, trying to see if there's, let me have a look and see if I can do anything here. I don't think so.
Security. Maybe it's, I have Zoom meetings. That's what I
Yeah,
have.
you'll be fine. Maybe next week. I'll look into it and we can sort it out for next week if you want.
Okay. But we're going to get through with no technical difficulties. But yeah, I don't see anything. I got the little record button, the little shield, meeting
I think
information.
if you press the little record button, does it give you extra options and like a more?
I went into the,
And it'll say
Oh, it's
share
the black-
content. I think only the meeting host can share. So if you hit that, you'll see a little arrow at the bottom that says share content.
hold on. Let me get out of this. Click on the little record. Not doing anything. Nope.
Do you see where it says mute, stop video, participants, more?
I see participants. I don't have a more screen.
Oh, you don't.
I
Okay.
did before. I have
Yeah, it's-
chat, share screen, pause,
Yeah,
pause
it'll-
and stop.
it'll say share content. It's green and it'll have a little arrow with, it's a green box with a black arrow.
The only thing I have like that is share screen.
Okay.
Let's go to advanced sharing options. Who can share? Only host.
Yeah,
Or
that's what,
all participants. Nope. Or before I did have a more button, but now I don't have a more button.
okay. Well, maybe we'll sort it out for next week.
Okay, Carolyn, she fell asleep. She's like, are we gonna get this thing
I'm trying
ready?
to figure out how to get everybody's, I see whoever's speaking. I see
You
my
s-
picture, but I don't need to see. And
Wipe
then
over.
Swipe over.
Yeah,
Ah,
it's got,
Bingo. Mine was quick. What happened to you, Rodney?
I don't know. I got. I'm new to this game.
Rodney,
Okay.
Rodney likes to take credit, not direction.
That's
Okay, so the question was, does anybody have anything new and exciting from this week? And Carolyn wants to go first.
yes, she did because we were already talking. Carolyn.
I got my second Moderna shot, so got seriously ill on Friday. So I slept all day Friday, which I have never slept all day on any. I don't think I've ever been that, not feeling good. So I just, but other than that, business is going booming. And I mean, just a lot of work. And so, but that's nothing like the 10,000 I manifested earlier. This is work to manifest, that's okay. So, anyway, so, but no, I can't say that anything's particularly different than it has been every week here and there. So, no.
Cool. Good deal. Manifest another couple of tens of thousands of dollars, but not working too hard to do that. So,
I'm working hard. I didn't say I wasn't working hard.
no, I'm saying you should do that. That's what we're gonna put out there because it's the right thing for you. So. Priya?
I don't think I had anything crazy stand out this week. Just regular little manifestations of abundance here and there. One thing I found really cool is a group where you can give stuff away. So it's called for free or something like that. Anyway, I was just and they really talk about it's just being a group of abundance and about being able to gift something to someone. And it's not like just get rid of stuff. It's like you could put something out there and then you can wait to hear who comes back with a story of like why they want it or what they're going to use it for. And you don't have to go in order or anything like that. You can just choose who you want to gift it to. So I thought that was really cool because as I was decluttering my basement, I found so much stuff there that is either brand new or whatever. And I thought couldn't be bothered to sell it, but I hate to throw it away. And so this group just came to me and I manifested, being able to join it. And so I'm looking forward to gifting some things because I think that's also such an important part of abundance.
Sure. Good.
Great, and that's actually talked about in this chapter.
I know.
So again, you're manifesting real life the night before. So, and are you finished with that story?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if there was going to be some more, like maybe what you gave away.
No, not finished with that story.
Oh, I have so much to give away, but I think the good part of that is I saw that even when I was selling some things, like I sold these little beanbag chairs. For me, it really wasn't about the money, but this one woman, she came and she sent me a picture of her like little infant in this beanbag chair. It was the cutest thing ever. And I just thought how nice to be one of those people, because that's the kind of wonky stuff that I do when I buy something from someone off Marketplace. And I'm like, look how nice your thing looks in my house. And
Right.
and they're like, yeah, okay, lady, whatever. Get no response, unread, block. And then, but so she sent me this picture and I was so touched because I'm like, it just feels good to know that you can pass something along, whether it be for free or for a small amount of money or a big amount of money, and allow someone else. The abundance just keeps giving. And it's not just monetary.
And it's appreciated.
Yeah, like it was an abundance of joy. And that particular, item is going to get an abundance of use, which is just like, that's great.
Right.
And that's the end of my story.
That segues into exactly what I wanted to say was, basically the week, the court thing, but I took the week off and I cleaned out my storage unit. I had a storage unit in Greensboro, North Carolina. I cleaned that out. And I cleaned out the storage unit in Pennsylvania. So I have everything in my place here and I started going through everything. So I have a keep pile, I have a giveaway pile, and I have whatever the other pile was, I forget.
A
trash pile. No, a trash pile. Just
trash.
Throw it out. Okay. Yeah, so it's funny that we're on that same wavelength, but that's actually one of the things that I highlighted in this chapter about the lull of use, because I have been feeling congested lately. Ever since I moved into the apartment, I always feel like there's something bound up. And I think after Thursday's little debacle there, some things broke loose. I mean, for me mentally, and I really just kind of let go. And like we were talking before the call started, I'm not even concerned about it. To me, it's no longer an issue. But to answer your question, Priya, from last week, I think it was in the post game, you asked, well, what happens if, it kind of went the other way? Well, it didn't do that, but I was actually nice. And when I stopped to pick my son up, she had asked for a favor. So I went to Lowe's or Walmart and got her 15 bags of mulch and everything and took it back to her. So, you know, that not harboring any ill will or whatever. So,
That's
uh,
good.
and I think
Love
that,
mulch
yeah,
to plant new seeds of desire in.
yes. That's where square foot gardening comes in handy. So,
And you're like, water them from someone else's can because I'm taking my watering can.
no, right. Nope. Gave the watering can away.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I'm waiting for another one, but no, so it was a good week. So that was that, and I'm sticking to that. So we are on chapter 8, intuition or guidance. And anything jump out right from the start at the beginning that you want to discuss, or we'll just move on through?
I think right from the beginning, you know, her declaration style of language versus asking language. I think that's very important when you're using, you know, your languaging, and you know, she's talking about the words that you use, because the words are powerful. It isn't necessarily what you say, sometimes it's how you say it with what vibration. And I think that a lot of people, um you know, just, and I see it in my coaching practice, a lot of people that think because they pick the right words that the thing is coming, because they asked the universe for it, so that's good enough, or I put it out there. And it's like,
Right.
yeah, well, what'd you do with it after that, kind of thing. So I think there is a lot of importance, and I've seen it in my own practice, that declaration style of language is really important.
Exactly.
I agree. And what I saw was that, you know, it was demand your lead. You know, it wasn't just, you know, hopefully I'll get a lead. It was demand your lead. She's also written a book called I've got all of her books, but one of her books is called The Power of the Spoken Word. So she does really believe in the spoken word as being very, you know, very forceful.
It
Exactly.
really is, because the words hold a vibration.
Right.
Right, and those words, but like you said, Priya, you said that people always say in your coaching, not always, but a lot of times it's like, well, I'm saying the words, but things are not happening. Well, it's not really the words, and the universe is not responding to your words. You know, your words are helping keep you in line, but they're responding to your vibration. And if you're saying the words, but you're not backing it with belief and expectation, you're just literally blowing hot air. So,
Yeah, and I find too that you know, you're the type of language that you use, I'm very careful. I'm not, I am careful enough to choose affirmative language as much as possible, so that I know that by habit I'm speaking about what I do want rather than what I don't want. You know,
right,
even with, say, my dogs, like my husband will be like, you know, get off of there, and I'll be like, get on the floor. It's just like, tell me what you do want, kind of a thing. So you know, I think that that's very mindful. And it's later on in the chapter, but the other thing she said about, you know, it was more around like judgment per se, and how that comes back to you. We can talk about that as we move through the
right.
chapter in order, but that was another thing that jumped out for me, because I've had some serious experience with that.
Yes. That, yeah, that's near the end. I mean, I actually highlighted that chapter.
Okay.
But she says here, she says, I have often been asked just how to make a demonstration. And I reply, speak the word and do not do anything until you get a definite lead, as Carolyn said. Man the lead, saying, Infinite Spirit, reveal to me the way. Let me know if there is anything for me to do. And the answer will come through intuition or a hunch. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that I find that to be very true, because what you're in Abraham terms, that would be your inner being. So your inner being will give you an impulse or some sort of guidance. You'll get an inkling to do something. I know in this group, we often reference back to the day that you went to change your oil, Carolyn, and it was just like you ran into the gentleman that was an old client. So it's those types of inklings. And I think one of the things that trips a lot of people up is they think that guidance is going to be like direct conversation. Like it's almost as though people are like, please tell me how I'm going to get to la la la. And they expect to hear, well, so and so you're
Right.
supposed to go down I-95 and take a left. Like it doesn't come like that. So I think that when she's talking about waiting for that lead, and if you live in that mindset of trusting and following leads that sit with you, you have that inkling or that interest or curiosity, and you follow those without too much of question, then that really gives you the signs and allows you to go forward. There are just sometimes, you ever doing something and you're asking yourself, I don't know why I feel like I got to do this or go here or call so-and-so or pick this up or walk in this room or whatever it might be. There's so many things that we're being led to that it just, the answers are coming from within us. So I find that also it's not necessarily in coming through in direct, an audio version, but they're either those signals, inklings, you feel like eating something all of a sudden, which and it's the restaurant or the drive to, it's all of those things that are the leads.
Exactly.
It was like her going to the bakery and, she didn't know why she was going to the
Yeah.
bakery. It's just, you just follow that hunch, whatever. So
I know for me, sometimes like I'll be places and I'll stand in front of a store and I'll hear, oh, there's something in here. There's something in there that you need. Or, so I go there. Like I know last year I was in the metaphysical store and I heard this, sort of, there's something in here. So I went around and I was guided to this native, like an Aboriginal drum, which I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I love music. Sure. I can never have too many instruments, but okay. And it turned out that, a couple weeks later, I had an Aboriginal client that I needed to do some ancestral work for. And so I needed that particular tool. So it's interesting when you really tune in, because what I find for myself is I receive the leads sometimes before I approach the situation and find out after what things, make sense to me. Like, oh, that's why I got that.
Oh, you mean that you sometimes get these things before you even thought about voicing that desire or that
Yeah.
need?
Or like that particular thing that happened on the drum was sitting on my altar for 2 weeks. I didn't know. I just picked it up. And it was weird because I went into the store and I was just like, I can't imagine why I need this. And then it was kind of bothering me. And I remember sending my son down there and I'm like, can you just go buy this thing for me? Just I don't know why. And then it was another week after that client booked that session and I required that particular tool. So I find that not sometimes, your inner being knows well before you know, because it's, in the vortex and it kind of has a sense of where and what's coming up. So it's leading us to things that will assist us or are the signs. And I think that comes from trusting so much in the leads that I get, that I'm sometimes or often led before the actual occurrence or situation or interaction takes place.
Carolyn?
Well, I agree with that. Today I had a reminder. Of something I've forgotten. It was under a stack of stuff but I had to fill out a contract for a state which is my biggest client. I do state work, which they have asked for a contract, and you bid this sort of kind of, and you're ranked 1, 2, 3. So I've been ranked number 1, but I'd forgotten about it. So it's due on Tuesday. So I sat down today and did it. And as I'm filling it out, it's just like I got this real big move and I put down a number bigger than I thought I was going to put down. It was like, oh, okay, well, that sounds like a good number to put down. So, they have asked us, because they're trying to save money for the state, they've asked us to, take a lot less than what we normally make. And over the years, then I've progressively gone up and, higher a little bit, and everybody else has, but we don't know what everybody else does. So you're hoping you're going to be ranked, but I got sort of kind of led to do a number that I thought, I thought I was going to stay the same where I was, and I ended up saying, no, I'm not going to do that. So I just sort of felt that I needed to raise it a little bit after last year and after working for many years under the normal rate anyway. Even though they're the biggest client. And if I don't get it, it's okay. It's okay.
But you feel good about that number. So,
I do feel good about the number. Yeah.
and I mean, they're familiar with you and your work, and
Right.
it's probably going to be a non-issue.
I'm hoping that's the case.
So,
I'll let you know.
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but you said you're not attached to the outcome,
Yeah,
but
I
then
want
you
the
just
work
said,
if
I
can
hope
have-
it is that
I,
case.
I want the work. I mean,
Oh,
I've
it will.
yeah. So hopefully it'll work out. But if it doesn't, something else will come up. Something better.
Well, it always does. And, but again, this is like Priya said, now she's to the point that, things are starting to come her way that she doesn't understand about before she's even voicing the request or the desire. And for a lot of people, when they're first starting out, this is something that's very, very hard to do. I mean, what I've been saying, the last couple of weeks, we've really been talking about defining things and writing things down and the reasons why, because of the rain and all that stuff. But I said to somebody the other day, you just write it down, you think about it, and you get this sense of knowing that it's yours, but then you have to pay attention to your environment, your surroundings. Even the littlest things, and Priya and I talked about this when the gentleman was on the call that night. And it may be something totally off the wall. It may be something straightforward, like, people do think you're going to get like verbal directions of what you have to do. Step one, you need to do this. No, but it doesn't work like that. And when people start to do that, they do start to see these little things. And then I think with practice, we can get to that point too, where we are actually, oh, I need to pick that up. Why? Who cares? I'm going to pick it up and then set it aside. And then it comes up for the need. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And I think too, because how she says, and then do not do anything until you get a definite lead. We're very much conditioned into make it happen kind of mode, like you got to make shit happen all the time. And it's like a lot of pressure. And if you buy into that, like it's almost like trying to force your crops to grow. And it just sometimes is, too much too fast before it's ready. And then you don't know if it's overwhelm or whatever happens. It's almost like, in business, they'll talk about scalability or you've got a great idea and you went off, and it's selling like hotcakes, but you can't keep up with the orders or you can't keep up with the supply, right? So I think it's important to know that there are things that are paced as well, because the things that are going to continue allow for longevity are coming as well too. So a lot of people get caught up in it's not here yet, or it's not going as fast as I want it to, thinking they need to add more. It reminds me of like Miracle-Gro. That's what I get oh, my crops, and let's put some Miracle-Gro on it and like make it 6 times bigger. It's like not necessarily what's good. It just, yes, it might expedite it. It might make it happen, sooner, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's in your best interest, because your vortex, your inner being, the divine plan has it all worked out, and we don't need to force things.
Right. So your tomato may be 2 pounds, but it tastes like sourdough. I mean, so yeah. Carolyn, did you want to say something before I go off on a tangent?
No, I was just gonna say, it's, not having the control. I think that's where we all get, you want to control every aspect of everything, and there's just times that you cannot do the control issue, but, I think we've covered that many times, so, it's just, letting the universe take control.
Right,
I also think I would even like invite you to trade that control word in for deliberate, right? Because you are deliberate. You don't need, so
Right.
you don't need to control, because as a deliberate creator, you're going to create what you deliberately the way you want. And so we don't have to control,
Right.
because you know what you want and it's coming.
that's it.
Or better.
And
Yes, exactly.
we can TikTok about it all we want. So, but I think a simple way is, our job is the what and the why. The other part is the how and the when. That's not our business, but we need to be ready for that, because the how is going to show itself. And of course, that'll lead to the when. And like Carolyn just said, no attachment to the outcome. She knows what she wants. She wrote it down. She gave the number, and, the rest is not in her hand. And
Right.
now the tangent I wanted to go off on, when you mentioned seed, I love that word seed because I love the planning. But here's my question. When you listen to the Earl Show training, or that he had, he says that the mind is just like a fertile piece of ground, and things that are planted there are going to come up. But he says, most people do things wrong because they plant, they pick out the seed, they define it, they pick it out, they plant it. And he says, then you just write thank you across it. Because he's saying that when you keep looking at that thing, okay, I want the black Tesla. And when you keep pulling it out and looking at it, I want the black Tesla. It's like going out there to the seed and digging it up and saying, oh, are you growing it? I want the corn, But then you listen to other things, like particular Earl Nightingale in The Strangest Secret, and he says to have your written down goal there and read it constantly, which is kind of like constantly digging up the seed. What are your thoughts on that? Anybody?
I think there's one word, there's only one thing difference about that, and you can do either. It's if you have to be in alignment first. So if you're in alignment with it, with your desire, and it makes you start off with what you desire and you're in alignment, you look at it and it doesn't cause you to lower your vibration, read it 72 times a day. If it does, then don't do that, if it takes you down. So I think it has to do with, because I do have some people who, when they say I want the black Tesla, what it actually does is it makes them feel more lackful, because what they're actually doing is reinforcing that I do not have it yet.
Right.
They're
Right.
more actually in line with that it's not here yet. And so it depends on how you can feel about it when that happens. I know after I had my fourth baby, so we went to Turks and Caicos, and I remember sitting at the swim up bar, and I had like the bikini that I probably had before the second or third baby. And in my head, supermodel at the swim up bar, I was like having a good old time, and I was thinking I look like the cat's meow. And then I got back to the room and I'm going through the photos of my husband, and I'm like, oh my God, I had the muffin top that could have filled up all of Dunkin' Donuts hanging over. And I was just like, oh my God, that's awful. Right? So the illusion, it's like, if you can stay in the picture and it's okay, no problem. But if you look at it and then the movie stops and it becomes a horror show, it doesn't work. And so after that, I had trouble with it. I had trouble with affirming that way. So then I just went to, I have a body that I'm happy to be in. And then I could do that, right? So if it's a Tesla, I would go to, if it doesn't jolt you into joy or something that feels uplifting, then I would go to, I really love the car that I drive. It feels great inside, and describe it without describing it by name.
Right. Carolyn, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. It sounded like when you told the Earl show part that it was just like you're digging it up to see if it's growing, to see if it's there. So you're in a doubtful state there. Whereas, you know, when Earl says what he has to say, that then it's more of, hey, it's there. It's you know, and it's not. It's just part of, this is what you want. It's coming, and it's more expectation than it is. But it's still, you know, it's still not here right now, but it will be here. Whereas the other one's more of a doubtful type of thing. You know, you're looking to see if it's there. So that was what I've got the feeling when I heard you say the Earl thing.
Right, yeah, I agree with that, because I think a lot of times when we do read out our goals, most of the time, not necessarily people here, but I mean, a lot of times people are reading it with that idea that it is not here. Versus, and I think Earl Shove and Earl Nightingale, the two Earls. Actually,
Where's the Duke?
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think they're
Yeah.
actually saying the same thing, because, you know, Earl Nightingale is saying, you know, to keep reading it over and over, but I think it's inferred that you already believe that it's true, but you're just
Yes.
reading it. And Earl Shoaf is like, you don't need to repeat it over and over. That's why you say thank you, because it's on its way. You know it's on its way, but then you pay attention to things that are happening, and then all of a sudden you see it driving down the road. Thank you. It's on its way. Or you see two people having a good relationship, that, you know, that's what you're looking for. Thank you. You know, so you don't have to necessarily repeat it. And I guess, like Priya says, whatever is more comfortable for you. But I think many people do voice it from a position of not knowing and not believing and not expecting that it's going to actually happen.
I think that when you get to that phase of knowing that your desires do come, then it's a different ballgame, because it's like a kid with Santa. Oh, I'm excited. I know it's not now, but I love, you know, like that advent calendar. Okay, I know I'm gonna count them down, and I know it's not. I'm so excited. So I think that there's a level of excitement, joy, all of those types of vibrations that you can engage that actually bring the joy in the journey of it. So that, to me, that's like sort of next level or next phase, if you can get to that space. Because for some people, they're still working on getting into that belief, getting into that that zone of, yes, it is going to happen. And then I think when you just know, yeah, all my stuff's happening. So now when you're looking at it, it's like going on a trip or something like that, and you're getting excited because it's not here yet, but it's coming. And that's so exciting.
Absolutely. And trying to scroll down here.
The only difference between the advent calendar and what you're getting is you at least know the countdown days.
Yes.
It's coming on the
Yeah.
20th.
Yeah.
Right. And then she, you know, she actually went into this story about the lady that wanted some money.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she actually wanted a lot of money. And, you know, she had this idea to give a friend $100. And obviously she told the friend, I got this hunch, Carolyn, that I need to give you $100. And then Carolyn,
Send it my way.
right, that's not what the friend said, Carolyn. The friend said, the friend,
We're telling the story the way we want to see it, Rodney.
right, well,
It was last week's
I want to
lesson.
rewrite the end.
but the friend,
Planting the seeds.
oh my gosh. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you.
No problem.
But the friend said, well, just wait and see before you give me the money if it really is a lead. And then it ended up that it was a lead, and Carolyn got her $200. But anyway,
I just cut out a small step. No big deal.
right.
Yeah.
But she says, giving opens the way for receiving. So in order to create activity and finances, one should give. And we started off this call with Priya and her free group. And, Carolyn is giving of herself and her time with her profession and getting, buried with work, which, but that's causing you too to demand more. It's like, well, I'm super busy, so I'm going to put this number out there. If they take it, great. If they don't, great, because I'm still busy.
I'm still
And they're going to take it. And that's the good thing. So, which leads into the next thing she says, that man himself limits his supply by his limited vision.
Mhm.
Sometimes the student has a great realization of wealth, but is afraid to act. The vision and the action must go hand in hand. So, and that happens a lot. I mean, I know I experienced that I wouldn't, I think I'm opposite of that sometimes. Sometimes my vision is bigger than, I'm not limiting it, but there is still the hesitation to sometimes act. And I think that's what I was saying earlier, that meant that shift that happened Friday was, I think, in that direction. So,
I think though
You're
that
enjoying-
sometimes, sorry, go ahead, Carolyn.
I was just going to say, you're enjoying your visioning. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's the first step to enjoy that big vision. And you may not get it this week. You may, just like an oak tree isn't going to be farmed in a year, a huge oak tree. It's going to grow and so your vision may, develop and be exactly what you want it to be. And it may take 5 years, and that's okay, and along the way you'll get other things too. So that's there's nothing wrong with that.
well, exactly. And that's a good point. I mean, I'm working a 3 to 5 year plan. That's my, but you're right. I mean, even when we plant a garden, we know that we're going to have, succulent tomatoes and juicy melons and all this stuff, but we're not going to have it tomorrow because there is a definite time frame for things to happen. And, I mean, especially when it comes to money, you hear people say, well, it didn't happen overnight. Or they say, well, it just seems like it just happened overnight that it happened. But it didn't really do that. Overnight, it might have been 6 months to a year. But since they were enjoying the journey, as we said earlier, it seemed like it happened overnight because the time just went away.
That and yeah, you see many talented people, musicians and actors, they didn't get there overnight. It's just like, you see them at their peak and their stardom and you're thinking, wow, I wish I could do that. Well, it took many years to get to where they are. It wasn't just an overnight thing. So, you have to put the investment of the time into it a lot of times. So,
but everything has a definite timeline, and as long as we don't, I think as long as we don't interfere in that, like with the plants, as long as we keep them watered and do what we need to do, we're basically guaranteed a harvest. But if we start not watering, we don't pull the weeds, we don't protect from the weather, well, then we're going to get less than, a good thing.
But
And
is
I
that
think-
a timeline? Is that a timeline or is that a more process oriented? Because if you're not tending to your garden, then that's to me is more process oriented, or taking the steps that you need to do in order for it to happen versus the definitive amount of time.
Well, I think it's both, because with the garden example, there's definitely a gestation period for a seed. Say, in prime circumstances, it's from point A to point B to harvest. But yes, along that time, it is up to us to be minding the process of keeping things to that timeline. But with our personal life, though, with our goals, we don't really know what the timeline is. Yes, we set a deadline, or we set a date that we would like things to happen by, but we're not always sure of the timeline, which we shouldn't worry about. And processes come as they come.
So what do you think about this example in the book where she was like the next day, and so it was for it to happen for the next day, and then it did.
You mean in this story, right? The story in this chapter?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right after this, let's see. Because the story after this is the one with the
That's
position.
Yeah, I mean, in this one, she told her, go tomorrow and give someone $100, right?
Oh, okay, there, yeah.
And so she said she did it, and it happened.
Right, and it happened quickly.
Yeah, so I think I know for seeds, like seeds are physical, so definitely when we're growing plants and stuff, there is a gestation. But I think when it comes down to our desires, because we have that ability to tune into co-creative energies from the universe, we can expedite things without effort, without struggle, without time investments, and things can happen just like that.
Well, maybe it happened just like that for that lady because she was in alignment.
Yeah, and that's one of the things Abraham would say is that, we could have everything instantly if we would allow it. It's
Right.
just a matter of us lining up.
But that's right, we get in our own way.
Yeah.
We are our biggest critic, and our biggest worst enemy is ourselves. Well, I mean, think about it. A lot of the things that most people say to themselves, they would never ever tolerate somebody else saying it to them. They say it to themselves, and it's like, oh, no big deal.
I know. That's a line I use in my coaching. I'm like, if you had a friend like you would get rid of them. The way you speak to yourself, if you had a friend like you, they get rid of you, or you get rid of them. It's not very nice, or it's not encouraging, or it's stressful. So I think that's very true. Okay.
But they don't
So the
believe
next
that they're
one is
saying that. They don't
next
believe
one
that
is
they're
the-
saying that to themselves, though.
Yeah. Well, I think it's autopilot, right? It's just like how we don't pay attention to brushing our teeth in the morning or what have you. It just becomes, it's automatic. We think the thought, we don't even notice it anymore. You might look in the mirror and think whatever you think, you don't even hear it anymore, that you say it to yourself, or, at work or whatever it is. So I think that there's just so many things that we've tuned out to because we just don't hear them going on. And then till we start to gain that level of awareness. It's interesting because it does take some work to dig down to. And even that was the thing when you were saying about, how we don't align with it. Sometimes it's not necessarily like, oh, because we have large visions or we're not, or we're limited. I think that when she talks about limitations as well, limited visions, it doesn't necessarily have to be directly like the opposite of the vision, or there's a limitation. There are sometimes things that we believe that create messaging for us that make something else, that makes something else, that makes something else impossible, because the initial message says this can't work, so then that can't work and that can't work. But it's difficult sometimes to find that, because we oftentimes want to just go to, okay, well, I'm not getting this, so I should think this thing. Oh yeah, I don't have, I'll see it all the time with people with, relationships. And I'll say, well, I can still see that you have some connections to a past relationship. I'm like, oh no, I don't even think about him or her anymore. Like, doesn't even cross my mind. I'm like, maybe not this one, but the ones in your subconscious, it's crossing. And there's things left in there, or things that are left to be dealt with or healed, or, just sorted out. So I find that when it comes down to it, that sometimes what can be, contradictory is not a direct, I have a problem with the thing I'm thinking I want. I'm blocking myself. It's that somehow I have some side message that won't allow me to access it.
Carolyn?
That was deep.
Yes, it was. Now, was that where you were going, Priya, or were you
Yeah,
getting ready to
it's
read something
because
else?
we spoke actually last week in our little after meeting, and I was talking a bit about the groups that I was struggling to be a part of. And Carolyn, your words really stuck with me because you're like, well, why do you go back there then? And I was like, geez, that's a darn good question. And so I was like, so the thing was, well, because that's where, that's sort of my association of where I'm supposed to go. And so I was like, okay, well, what's the problem I have with it? And when it really came down to it, it was a message that had like nothing to do with that group. It came down to betrayal because I didn't want to do the things that seem to be the norm to do. They betray my own belief system or my own integrity of how I carry out my work. And so that was the problem I had, because I was like, well, I can do all these things that they're offering and so what's the problem? So it came down to that and a couple of other messages, but they were completely not surface related to being in the group.
Right.
Well, yeah.
And what
They
you,
just,
go ahead, Rodney.
well, they just didn't align with your thing. Like you said, you felt like you were being pushed to
Yeah.
have to do
And-
this and
And it's funny because when I dug down deeper, the actual the root message that I had was completely unrelated. And so that's what I'm trying to say, is that sometimes when you really dig down deep to the core of what's rotting at the bottom, when you get down in the roots and they all seem fine, and then you really dig deep down and you're like, oh my gosh, this is like rotting under here. That's when I could see like what it really was. And it was creating like almost like a toxin, or it was doing something to this shoot or that one. It was creating an issue, but that wasn't the root cause. And sometimes the root cause has absolutely nothing to do with the surface issue, the one that you can see.
Right.
Carolyn.
Well, and I was seeing when we were talking, you and I, Rodney, I could see Priya's mind going, I'm going, oh, she's really thinking something there. It's just like, she's got to say whatever it is, because, and it is a lot to process, what you just said, because you're right. I mean, we do have issues going underneath that we sometimes just don't even know to address, or we have put them out of our side thinking we've dealt with them, and they don't, they manifest in certain ways at times that we just aren't expecting it. So alignment is the word that is really the probably of tonight, is the huge word that we need to be in alignment with ourselves, and you sometimes you can't control other people and what they do and how they think. My a friend of mine, I talked to her yesterday. Her mom's 85, and so she's going through a hard time with her. And she said something, her mom said something mean to her, and she goes, Mom, that's one thing I will not tolerate, is you being mean to me. And I had to applaud her, because to say that to your parent is really, I usually suck it up and let my mom say whatever she wanted to say.
Yeah.
But I have had to applaud her. So, we do have to dig deep into those old patterns and get past them. And so,
Yeah, because they're vibrational, right? And so energetically, that's where I find a lot of people run into frustrations, because they're like, but I'm doing all the right things and the processes and whatnot, but the universe isn't responding to that. They're responding to the vibration. And if their vibration isn't a match for whatever reason, then it will, it needs clearing up. And, I was listening to an Abraham yesterday, and it's such a great line, because they say, if you're really living in the joy of the journey, then you're happy where you are right now without that thing that you want.
Right.
Right. And Abraham always says, we want the thing, not for the thing, but we want it for the feeling that we believe we'll have when we have it. So then, focus on the feeling.
Yeah.
And then,
well, I don't know who I was listening to, but somebody had said, what do you want? And, people were, I don't know. He goes, I can tell you what you want. You want to be happy. You want to enjoy life. You want to have a good time. And so, that's one thing we all want in life. And so you be happy now, and with and hoping that something will come along, that you want it to come along, but be happy where you are. So,
Right, but for a lot of people, that's not that simple because they're focused on their circumstances and their environment. And they believe that they cannot be happy due to this person in my life, or because of this is where I live, or this is where I work, not realizing that none of those things have anything to do with your happiness.
well,
You
and everybody manifests where they are. You're there because you've manifested that, or, I mean, you're born into it, but then you manifest as an adult and, you're there, which is later on. We got to keep going because I got a pink slip on one of these pages I want to talk about.
Okay,
Okay, go, go, go.
let's go to your pink slip.
My pink slip is, well, in my book, it's 2 pages away because it talked about when the Boy Scouts hit the woman. She was crabbing about somebody being rude and unfriendly. And so she walks around the corner one day. She's walking along the street, saying mentally, this woman's the most agreeable person on earth. And then she was knocked over by 3 Boy Scouts running around the corner.
Right.
Okay, that one. So, I mean, today we've got the attacks on the Asian Americans. I don't know if you're having that issue in Canada, but we're having that issue in the United States, and then we have the Black issue that's coming. Black Lives Matter issue, and so so it says, because I just don't believe that this whole group of people have brought this on themselves. You know what I mean? So when she says, that this woman got hit by the Boy Scouts because she had a disagreeable thought, I have a hard time saying, yeah, a whole group of people bring this ignorance on them because they're having a bad thought. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think that it comes more from people who are trying to feel superior will attract people who will identify with being inferior. So, I mean, I don't know how you label it in the US, but here we're literally called minorities. Like, I'm the minor, you're the major. So that's what that is. So
Yeah.
I think there's a level of, if I want to be major, I need to go, and I don't feel that way, I'm going to go find somebody who's minor so I can remind them that they're minor so that I can feel major. And I think that's really where it comes down to. And I think it comes down to the same thing when we talk about, violence against women. It's usually comes from, somebody who doesn't feel powerful. So they look for someone so that they can be powerless and have power over them. I think that's where the point of attraction comes from.
Well, and I know Abraham talks about the raper and the rapist come together, that they somehow have a vibrational thing where they meet. And it's just, it's a whole group of superior white, usually white male, not necessarily, I've seen some white females do it too. I'm sitting there going, it's just amazing. Feeling so, that they have to show their power.
Well, I think it's that. I also think that there's a level of, messaging that goes around. There's beliefs that I can't have something because you have it, and versus there's an abundance to go around. So there's still a lot of limiting beliefs of that the supply of anything is limited. So that I have to take, I have to seek vengeance because of you, this I have, I think there's a lot of that going on. And I think that there's only so much that people can take. I can start to see it this particular round. I was just saying when you got on the call that we were put back at stay-at-home orders, but to the point where the police in our province have been given authority to stop us and question where we're going, which then sparked another thing, because then they said it increased the chances of racial profiling. And then the police were saying certain precincts were saying they wouldn't do it. So it's just to try and protect one cause, you end up putting somebody else feeling vulnerable. And I think that comes from the fact that they're just, in my opinion, we have too many labels for people, too much. I don't know how we get inclusivity and equality by keeping separation to the almost micro separation. Okay, you're this kind of person, you're this. It's let's just be humans. How about that?
Well,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah, it's micromanaging to the everything and everybody identifying with your little group of people. And
But
we're
I
the
find
whole
that,
group of people. We're the whole
right.
group of people.
And but to me, it's like the more little groups of people that and every little group of people wants to be accepted as equal. And then you're like, okay, well then just don't be a little group of people anymore. Let's just all be one big group of
Yeah.
people. Like, I don't know. It seems very simple to me, but I don't know if I'm missing something.
But a
Well,
lot
I'm
of
a minority. What do I know?
I'm missing
Right.
the same thing. It's like, why do you have to be a blank American? Just can't you be an American? I mean, seriously, Italian American, Jewish
It's
American.
confusing though. Like, I don't even know what I am because like my great grandparents are from India. My parents are from Guyana. If people say, well, you're not Guyanese because you're not born in Guyana. People say you're not Indian because you're not born in India. Well, you're not Canadian because you're not white. And I'm like, well, so I think I'm something. I know I am a something. Like, what do you want me to be then? I'm always so, you know which box I tick? Other. Because
right.
there's no box.
Well, and I think most of us, I mean, my nephew did a heritage, and we're made up of a lot of things. It's just, a little French, a little English, a little this, a little that, and it's just like no one's pure blood anymore. I mean, so it's like move on.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of it comes from people are lazy because a lot of people believe that it's easier I'm going to tear you down than it is to build myself up to become a better person. So, and to me, that's a cowardly and a lazy way to do things.
Is it lazy or limited thinking? And that may be because that just sparked, there's so many jobs that are available. So if that person takes a job, I can't get that job. So it's a limited thinking.
Well, we talked about this in the Science of Getting Rich. That's back to that competition. I wasn't barking and my stomach wasn't growling, but it just flew up out of
There's
her.
always a critic in the crowd.
Right? He's like, I'm having none of that. We're not talking about that. But yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. People, because it's limited thinking and it's like Priya was saying, they're focused on this lack that if somebody else has it, then I can't have it too. Now, yes, I mean, the reality is that say in a company, they're hiring one position. Obviously, there's one position in that company, but that doesn't mean, so if you're a manager and you applied to XYZ company because they have a position open for a manager and you don't get that position, that doesn't mean you're a bad manager. It doesn't mean anything. If you follow everything that we're studying, if that person followed that, then they would understand that that was not the right position for them, but there is a position coming that is for them. But see, they don't go that far. They look at it and say, well, damn, I didn't get hired for that job either. That's the fourth one in a row. Thoughts?
Yeah, but I also think that we're very much in a culture of, and then it becomes a why didn't I and who did and what do they got that I don't and what am I that they aren't. And so everything comes from, those types of evaluations right now, rather than, and you like we happen to be in a society right now where it's not okay to have a preference. It's not okay that maybe I just don't like you. I don't care if you're pink with white polka dots. I just think you're an a-hole and I just don't like you. And that's okay. You can go and be an a-hole, but I don't want to hang out with you. And that's okay. But it becomes so much of like, there's just certain things that means you're this or that or the other. And there's just certain frequencies don't go together. That's the end of the story. And there's nothing wrong or right about it. It's just, you match with some people, you don't. So when it comes down to hiring somebody, well, you hired that person because you like them better. Yes, I did. Because I have to work with them and I would prefer to work with someone I like, and that's a bad thing. Like, I think there's a level of, it just becomes so, I don't even think competitive is the word, but there's so much red tape as to what you can and cannot do. And, what constitutes making those types of decisions.
Yeah, you're right. And well, and that's a good point. I mean, if you're the boss, you know, it's up to you who you want to hire. And it's not because, well, I didn't hire this person because they were black, or I didn't hire this person because they were white. I didn't hire that. But somebody always makes it about that. It's like, no, I didn't hire that person because I just wasn't feeling it. I mean,
Yeah.
they're probably a great person, but me personally, this other person just kind of, I mean, that there's people in your life that, you just connect with. You just
Yeah.
do. And I mean, there's no explanation to it. And when you start to try and look at the explanation, that's when things go all haywire. It's like, well, why do I seem to be connected to people like that, or not connected to people like that? And then you realize, well, because they are a bunch of a-holes. That's why I'm not connected with them.
Yeah, and that's where I think when you look at it and you think, well, you so and so, you didn't hire me because I'm this or that or the other. And then I think to myself, well, do you really want to work for that person? Because they are that, and that's who they are, and that's just that. Like, so aren't you thankful that you didn't get that job? But what happens a lot, I don't know what it's like there, but here we have rules in terms of hiring, in terms of, so many women must be hired, so many visible minorities must be hired. And that also speaks to not just race, but also abilities, physical abilities. So you have to have, boxes ticked. And it just comes down to, like, that's what builds the resentment, because there was a time when it was like not fair, but we need to change the system of, like, just being able to recognize, okay, we're very diverse globally as a whole, that the faces change. So do we still need to do that? I guess, people who feel that that are labeled minority, it gives you a mindset that, oh, I don't have the same chance as everybody else, so I need the extra help, I guess. But it doesn't allow a lot of people to adapt with, it doesn't matter. I don't care. Like, let's all be behind door number 1, 2, and 3 and just hire us based on the paper resume and how the interview goes without you seeing me, like, how would that happen?
Right. But the other thing is too, I mean, what is, like, we're all talking about jobs and everything now, but you have to be qualified. If you're being hired for a certain position that requires certain skills and talents, it's nothing to do with minority or majority. The question is, do you have the demonstrable skills and talents to do the job to the expectation that we expect for what we're paying you for? It's like, well, no, I don't know how to do that, but you got to hire me because of the numbers,
Yeah.
because you need one more of my type.
Yeah, or you could get somebody who is, well qualified, but is not a team player. And then you have that issue. So there are many things to consider when it comes down to it. But I think to go back to what Carolyn was saying in terms of, did this really warrant that? I think it just comes down to, in experiences, that there are certain things that it's not just literally one thing for another. It's the energy. It's if you look at the vibrational scale and it has numbers. So let's just say, look at them as apartment floors. And that even though we're on level 14, it's not exactly that both parties live in apartment 308. It's just that they live on the same floor. And so experiences and situations of that vibrational frequency occur, but they're not literally one related to the other sometimes, in terms of this caused that.
Okay.
That's what I. And then I really want to talk, as Carolyn decided, I want to talk about that condemnation stuff. That's very important.
That's what I'm looking at right now, the line
Okay.
that says, what man condemns in others, he attracts to himself. That part,
So true. That is so true. I learned that very much earlier on in my like early 20s. And it is so true because the things that I used to condemn, I would be given the exact same experience to understand it so that I felt in a way be taught. You want to know, when you say something like, how could someone do la 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 la? And then you get into that situation like, oh, I see how someone could do this if they were in this situation. Okie dokie. And you think that because your situation is, it, of course it's different to you, but it's somewhat not different, right? It's the same
Right.
vibration of it. And it ends up that way. And so I think that's one of the things I always tell my clients, I learned very carefully, is not to judge things, because you will, when you question and condemn, you will be given an opportunity to gain further understanding, to help you answer your questions as to how does somebody behave like that? How does somebody act like that? How does somebody choose that decision? And again, it may not be a literal replication of what you're judging, but something of that nature comes up.
exactly. And before we move on with that, I'm just gonna ask this question. Have you both noticed the people that Florence Shin obviously hung around? I mean, most of the women she hung around, their husbands all left them for other women. I mean, have you noticed that? Or is she just having the same friend that,
No, I think that the time frame that this was written in, that wasn't an uncommon thing.
okay. I mean, it just struck me because I was reading for example, a friend came to me because her husband had deserted her. And then I got thinking, well, she's used that same story with lots of her friends.
Well,
She had a
And
club.
it's like, yeah, right. So,
Well,
but
and she probably had a groups of hundreds of people, and she's pulling out 2 or 3 examples, and the divorce, the
Yeah.
more dramatic examples that she could find, is what she's probably
But
drawn.
When she
So-
talks in this particular chapter, she talks about some sort of treat. She was like treating people or treatment.
well,
Right.
her treating is her words. Like people come to you for, spiritual work. And it's like that would be her treatment.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. So I think that her stories, while she might call them friends or what have you, I don't know that they're, so as a healer, I attract people who require healing.
Right. Because if you attracted people that didn't require healing,
I would not be a very lucrative healer.
no, why is my techniques not working? Probably because I didn't need them. Like,
Exactly. So I think that that just so happens is, because I'm a problem solver, I attract people with problems.
right.
So she wouldn't want to. My problem just walked in. She calls them. What do you call people? Clients?
Clients. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love clients. But
So,
problems are
I walk in
just,
the doctor and she calls me friend, and I'm going, we're not friends. I'm your doctor.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
But problems are just questions we haven't answered yet.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And basically, yeah, completely.
Rhea's like, "Oh, well, that was right on the nose."
There you go.
I don't have anything else to say about that. But
That's good.
but you're right about this condemnation, and I'll give you a prime example. My friend with Uber, one of her things that she can't stand is these scheduled rides. Where people put in a scheduled time to be picked up. I want to be picked up, and I guess Uber gives a 10-minute window. So if you want to be picked up at 7, it's like between 7 and 7:10, or you would pick between 6:50 and 7 o'clock. A lot of times she gets there earlier than that. And then she says, I'm not going to sit here and wait for 15 minutes. I'm going to cancel. And I said, well, why do you do that? I said, they made the order for that particular time. She's like, well, they should be ready. I said, well, they are going to be ready at the time that they scheduled to be picked up. Just because you show up early. And then I think what happens is when she does that and cancels them, that does come back later that same day with something else. But I guess she just doesn't see that they're related. But it's like, how would you like to be on the other end? Or I said, or what about if that was your daughter that had a scheduled thing and the driver just at the last minute said, cancel, and your daughter had to be somewhere. That's not cool.
It's not good business.
No, it's not, but it is going to come back.
Yeah.
Well, it's also the fact that she goes 5 minutes earlier than the 10 minutes that she's supposed to be and then complains that they're not ready. It's a bit delusional, isn't it? Like,
well, yeah. And I hope that God she never
don't make
sees
sense.
this. Hey, I'm going to have to go back and edit this out.
Oh, sorry,
She
friend.
could do one of two things. She could take a book and read, or she can learn to meditate for the 5 minutes and just use that time in a nice, peaceful way and get herself aligned and have a nice ride. I mean, there's things you can do in
I
5
think-
minutes.
Well, that's what I said. Take a minute to, go get a coffee, go take a restroom break, go do something. But basically, I said it's your own fault for showing up early. It's not the
Right.
person's fault.
I
And they
always-
shouldn't have to be punished for it.
So somebody wants, yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So even when you look at it, like indirectly, she could receive a consequence that's directly unrelated to her because somebody else didn't want to blah, blah, blah that day, whatever it is, and impact her life. And that will come back. And it might happen several times before she even sees the correlation.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
I show up early and I want to be early. I don't want to be late. I don't want to be running in at the last minute. So I sit there and wait until they're ready. And half the time they're late, and it's like, oh, God, but it's what it is. It's just part of the job, So
Yeah, I think that's the same thing that I did like you did. I always packed a book. I mean, now on my phone, I have so many things to do, but before we were so phone equipped, I always used to
Yeah.
have a book in my purse. So I was never at a loss for if I had to wait somewhere. It's like, great, a reading break, like whatever.
thank you, Lord.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, there's something that constantly sticks with me in this little book. This is It Works, the little pamphlet. But, where he says in here about caution, that you can attract things that you do not want. But when you want, look at that, Carolyn.
Oh, I feel left out. Nobody told me we were doing the show, the red book.
And anyway, and that's okay, Priya.
Sorry.
I could, I'd hand you my copy to show it, but I can't.
So Carolyn, this next part's just between you and I. No, I'm just, did you see the look on Priya's face? She was
I know
like,
she's the minority, so she doesn't have the red book.
no, it's not because you're a minority. It's just because we don't like you. But anyway,
The majority of the members have the book. The minority members don't.
That's because the minority member didn't go buy it.
right.
She didn't know we were supposed to. Were we supposed to buy that book?
No,
No,
Oh.
no,
Okay.
he had mentioned it, and I was curious about it. It's all of like 8 pages long. It's really not long.
Oh,
well, they said they used to read it on their lunch break.
Yeah,
But the thing he said in here, we got way off the track, was that whatever you want, you have to take everything that comes with it. And what I said the other day to her with this Uber thing was, look, you're an Uber driver. This is what you do when you accept a ride. You accept everything that comes with it, even if it has to be sitting there and waiting.
Yeah,
Because to
it's-
do otherwise is against nature.
it's so true. And it's one of those things when people come and see me and they're like, so-and-so in my life is so negative and that's all they talk about. And I said, you know what? If I didn't, if I held that attitude, like, well, I can't function because of them. If I held that attitude, I said I wouldn't make it to 5 o'clock in my office. I'd be on the floor every time you guys came to see me because all y'all come with these problems. And that's the whole thing. But I learned to shield that. It's part of what I do. It's par for the course. So you have to look at the things that you do bring. And sometimes we don't know what those things are because we haven't experienced yet. And then that becomes your clarity. And that's why, thankfully, we have a thing called divorce.
Oh my goodness. But sometimes that doesn't bring clarity either. It may bring some
Sometimes.
relief.
If divorce didn't bring you clarity, call me. I'll help you out so you don't make that mistake again.
No,
Divorce
the
will bring
one-
clarity, Rodney. Divorce will bring clarity if you don't have children. You're married to the person the rest of your life if you've got children.
well, I have
No.
children. You
But
you
that's what
can't
I'm
put the toothpaste back in the tube there, Carolyn.
You're gonna see that woman the rest of your life at weddings, first birthdays.
No, I won't.
Okay, you're not going to your kids' weddings?
Yeah, but she's not gonna be there. They don't.
Oh, okay. That's their
Yeah.
issue, my issue. Okay.
Yeah, they don't. No, they don't talk to their mother.
I've got
Um,
two nieces that don't talk to their mother, so I totally get that. I get it from their point of view. I don't get it from my personal point of view, so.
Right, but see now, like Priya, she said that last week, she said with her 3 marriages or 4. How many divorces did you have, Priya?
Oh, are you predicting me a 4th? 2.
Okay. But you said in both of the,
And how many men are in the house? Just 1 and 2. No, wait. I feel like it's that game. How many men are you
I
holding up?
never understood that one either. Well, I divorced that one, married this one, married another one, and then I remarried the first one. Okay. But anyway, the point I'm saying is, you said last week that in your divorces, that you never had to go to court. You never went into court. You were able to work things out amongst each other. And that is great.
Yeah.
But some people, you can't do that because they will just not be on that wavelength. Again, it goes back to what you said earlier. And I think it's about this power thing. And I'm talking about personally, but I'm talking about others in the situation too. Because I think the people that want to, because I'm like you, I just want to work it out. Let's just work it out. We don't have to have all this drama, but there are some people that they feel that like going through a court is somehow making them more powerful over you. And I mean, if that's fine, if that's what.
I think that sometimes people go to court because they don't feel that they can embrace or tap into the power required during that time. So they need someone else on their behalf to go and
Right.
do it for them. I think sometimes, depending on your circumstances, people don't know the letter of the law. I think sometimes people get taken advantage of in both cases, like both directions. So either somebody who's trying to take more resources away from the other person than they maybe are deserved of, or somebody's trying to take more resources away from somebody who should have more given to them. It just depends. But I think it gets lost. And that's the one thing that I saw. I was like, I didn't really see the point in it, but I can see where it happens. I know, for instance, for me, I had an internet TV network, and I was on another network, and I had told the lady I'm going to start this and talked to her about it first and said we could collaborate. And then the day I launched the network, she sent me a cease and desist order. And I was like, what? And I got upset, and then I was like, how am I going to fight? And then I just gave it to a lawyer, and I thought, this is your energy. This is what you do for a living. This is your vibration. And you go to another one like you, and you're on the same vibrational wavelength. And then you guys do vibrational talking of whatever, and you sort it out. And so I just did that. I just sent it to a lawyer, and I didn't worry about it again. So I think sometimes it comes from not feeling empowered.
Right. But then when you do give it to the lawyer, you're like, well, why do I have to be here? That's what I gave it to you for.
Yeah.
I just drooled on myself. I got so excited. But anyway, nobody saw. Carolyn did. But anyways, Carolyn doesn't miss anything. She may sit back here and sometimes she's quiet, but
Carolyn is a court reporter. It's her job not to miss anything.
she observes everything.
She has
My
to.
job is to hear everything and not miss anything there.
That's right.
Right.
But I told you before, I think I told you last week, that some people just want to be heard. They want their story. They want to get a story out and be heard. And
They want to be
then, you know,
right. A lot of times to be right.
right, be right, and somebody else on their side. And the only way if they can get somebody on their side is to pay somebody to be on their side. So, and unfortunately, the
Yep.
lawyer will take the money and, you know, and take it as far and as long as they can, some of them, you know.
Not her
So-
lawyer. He hasn't gotten a penny.
He got $500 because they had to file the paperwork at the courthouse.
Right. Well, that was the first lawyer she had and he got disbarred.
Oh, okay.
So this is the
No, I thought
second
you were talking
lawyer.
about me. I was like, oh, I paid my lawyer
Oh.
$500 that was it. My divorces both cost me $500 each to file the paperwork at the courthouse.
Boy, see? Now, I am thankful that that happened like that for you, Priya. I am so happy for that journey.
And so is Priya.
Yes, very much so. And we even have like child custody payments, spousal payments, all that kind of stuff. We just sorted it out. Sale, like I bought my ex at the house, all that kind of stuff. And we just did it. Because I said my thing is, why would we throw our hard-earned money away to a lawyer because we can't get along? Like, that's ridiculous. It's just gonna, for us, it was just going to deplete us more than anything. And rather than go take that money and let's start out lives separately.
Right. That would
Right,
all,
because I've heard divorces going over $10,000 a person. I mean, up to 20, and it's just like, oh my
Oh my God.
gosh, a lot of money to give to a lawyer to,
I mean, for
separate
me,
the
like
mess.
that can go in your kid's university fund or whatever. It's like, why?
Yeah,
It just depends. I think sometimes, depending on where you're at and who you are with as well, there's some cases where it's just not avoidable because there is no reasoning and there is no way of being in the same room anymore. And I've seen the best of people really when money's we're doing a whole course on it. Money is a funny thing. It can dictate different types of behaviors in people.
right. And I've passed that $10,000 mark, Carolyn.
good for you.
No, I mean with my
Oh, for the
attorney.
lawyer. Oh, whoops. We
good
thought you
lawyer.
meant you're done.
Oh, bad for you.
I thought you went. I thought you were on the $10,000 challenge, not the $10,000
He is.
giveaway.
It was very challenging, $10,000.
The $10,000 giveaway. Yes, my attorney manifested that and she's not even in this group. So go figure. No, I
She's
love,
got it down to a science. She doesn't need this group.
no, I love my attorney and she is, I mean, she's the only one that's ever really, I would put it this way, I would not want to be on the opposite side of her.
Mm,
So, but anyway,
because it could cause a lot of stress and stress can lead to disease.
yes. Now here's a section that I really wanted to get your feedback on, Priya. She says, I have found it destructive to look to the psychic plane for guidance,
Mm-hmm.
as it is the plane of many minds and not the one mind. Because it opens man's mind up to subjectivity and he becomes a target for destructive forces. What do you think of that?
I think it depends on the way that the reader is. For me personally, I always tell people, your psychic reading is as good as your belief in your psychic reader, because it is very law of attraction based. And what I tell you, if you believe and you hang on every word I say, if I say all these wonderful things are going to happen to you, and you believe that, you're going to go with that energy of belief and create that. If I tell you bad things are going to happen to you, you're going to look for it. Like oh, this is going to have watch out for a woman with the letter M. And then every time you hear Mary or Maria or Margie, you're like, it's you, isn't it? And you look for something. So you activate that. So I think there's that level of it. I think that, there is a level of opening things up that if you're not careful with what you're doing, that you can be subject to things. It's the same thing as you said before. When you bring something into your life, you have to be prepared for both sides of it, what else comes along with it. So in terms of and that's why for me, I don't really do like predictive type readings. For me, what I do is I read people's energies, and which for me is just somebody holding up their own book and showing me because they're having trouble reading it. It's too close to their face. They can't see it. I don't know. And so I read what their energy is saying, and where I see there is room for soul growth, and where I see there's room for them to clear things. And I think that helps to let people, and then, one of, if a psychic is a good psychic, what the one of the most popular lines you'll hear is, I knew that. I already knew that. And I'm like, but you came here and you were smart enough to listen to your inner being because you couldn't hear it from yourself. So you came somewhere where you would be able to hear it from someone that you could trust. So now you can implement it.
Right. So you're not telling anything new. You're just translating what they already know.
How could you? It's their inner being. Nobody can read your inner being more than you can. And so what I find is that the depth of the reading will go to and the accuracy of it will really come from the willingness for people. But I know that I'm the type of reader because I don't mess around. So if you've come to me, I know you're already open to that because that's just who I attract. And if you came to me in my early days of my career, you might have slid in, and then the days when I used to read in the coffee shops and things like that was a different thing. But nowadays, no. If you've come to me, I know you're on a deep soul journey. You're looking to really heal those deep wounds and old messaging, and evolve your soul, and really be here to find out how to access your purpose and to get in line with it. But I think it can be it can lead you down a road, because I see other types of readers that charge like large amounts of money for people and promise that they can do things. And that's not true, because it's not sustainable. So a reader might be able to assist, because it basically is the power of intention. So whatever, if you want to call it a spell or whatever you want to call it, it comes from intentioning something, and that person wants it as well. And so the momentum of your two energies can be powerful enough to make something happen. But if the other party or the situation, if their free will is not lined up with that, or that is not their true desire, it will be a temporary thing. Or if you've done it in such a way that is out of integrity, it will come back at you. And so you might get that one thing, but something other, comes back to that. What was that word? Condemnation. It comes back to that sort of a theory or a process where it will come back at you when you do stuff like that. And it may not be directly related to the thing you used it to manipulate. It will just be something that comes back at you.
Well, like the old saying goes, easy come, easy go.
And I've seen it. I've seen people do things. I know that what they've done, like sent in terms of energy, but it won't, because I'm, at the level I vibrate at. So it ends up it's almost like it bounces off and goes back and harms their family member or their person. And I'm like, don't do that. It's a very simple message. I tell it to my kids all the time. Don't do bad things. Just don't do bad things, because bad things come. Don't do bad things. Don't do things to people with intentions that aren't of love. And you'll be, because it'll come back. So just always be in compassion and love, and you're good to go.
And it always comes back at the worst time.
Well, yeah, because it has the most impact,
Yep.
And that's the opportunity you have to learn not to do that.
Carolyn?
I'm here. No.
Present.
Present.
I'm present. I'm paying attention. So, no, I don't go to psychic. I mean, I bet, and I don't know. I went to one time and I just, I didn't, it didn't relate to me at all. The only thing that she did say to me was my grandmother was always with me, which I've always felt my grandmother was with me. I think you make your own path. I mean, and so that, it's just not a path I have ever pursued. So, if somebody wants to do it, that's fine. I think psychics a lot of times take a lot of leave from what you say too.
Yes.
So you're giving them a lot of information. If you could just sit there mute, I mean, I think it would be a very short session because,
Well, that's the
know.
difference because I don't have a words, like I just read no talking and then I tell you first, because that's exactly it. Because then people will think, oh, you fed off of what I said. So I just go straight in, don't talk. And I'm like, this is what I get. And then see if I'm tuned in. And they're usually like, what? And then we go from there. So because there isn't, you have to look at what you receive. And when you're actually doing readings, it's just receiving vibrations from the other person, and it comes through information. You just get feelings and knowings, and that's just it. It's no different than feeling a vibration from someone, and you're like, they may not say anything, and if I walked into the reading and I was like this, and I'm like, hi guys, you'd be like, you okay over there? Like, you would just see from the vibration there's something you can interpret isn't like that. And I just think that I have a little bit more heightened state of being able to do that without all of that stuff, such obvious cues.
Right. And that would be interesting. I've just never gone to psychic. It's just not been.
I think the other thing that also has contributed to my ability to do that, to be honest with you, is growing up in an abusive home, because you learn to be so astutely in tune with who's in what mood, because okay, like today we're in, you got to watch. So I think that's the other part, those two things coupled. But yeah, I think that you can be open to things that you don't desire if you don't know who you're choosing, what you're doing. And it's difficult because there are people that the reason that people get into this stuff, it's like, why are you doing it? What's the purpose you're doing it for? And anybody who's willing to rip one person away from another person so that the person paying you can have them, I'm like,
yeah. And I mean, we all listen to Abraham. I mean, so there's certainly, that it's beyond other people's beliefs. So it's not like, I oppose that thought process.
And I think that's why I believe that's why Esther doesn't do readings anymore. She used to do them by telephone, but I think there's a level of that in terms of preserving the work and the teachings, that to keep that credibility and keep that out of it too, because it's also draining to do, because you're actually, shifting gears to get into someone else's vibration and then come back and translate it through your words and then expressing it to them so that they can understand their own words.
Right.
So.
Wow.
So the last thing is the health thing.
The what?
The health, about health and disease.
That's the last thing?
I thought so. I mean, we kind of went out of order for certain things.
But that's okay. So we said, all right.
Yeah, the only other thing was the giving a certain amount of the giving piece that we didn't 100% go into.
But we understand about giving.
Yeah. So I think she mentioned it here in the Jewish faith, and I think also in Islamic faith as well, they give that 10% of their salary.
Right.
Christian faith too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, yes, but we all understand the power of giving, and the rewards that gives. the rewards that we receive from that. So, but there is this other part here. It was funny because I'm reading this other book, eating on this book, but I'm reading this other book, and actually they went into the story from the Bible of the prodigal son, and but she says it's so much easier for the average person to have fear than faith. So faith is an effort of the will, and that's what we talked about earlier. Because it's a lot easier for people to tear people down. It's a lot easier for, somebody to act powerful over somebody who they perceive to be less powerful or less of a human or less of whatever. So, but faith does take effort. Faith is the belief in something that hasn't happened and the steadfastness that, of the unseen. So it does take effort.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't want to put the effort forward. Again, we've said it numerous times. 1, 2, 3.
Well, I think it's a consistent effort, and I think both books rely heavily on faith, and it's just a matter of faith in the unseen. And when people live more in the seen world, that's your faith is on an unseen thing. So I think it's more, future oriented and stuff like that. So I think that's where the problem becomes, is it's that they can't see it, they can't believe it.
Right. And they have to know the how right now.
Right.
It's like, okay, I believe I can do it, but how am I going to do it? Tell me now, because I need to know.
Or is it, and that's what a lot of what I don't, take on in my business, but I do get people that are like, well, I just want to know, like, is this going to happen? Can you tell me? And I go, well, do you want it to happen? Yeah, then it's going to happen. Like, it's not a thing. It's about that. So I think there's a level of what I see is people wanting reassurance because they can't reassure themselves. They don't identify yet with that power within them to be that deliberate creator. And I think that's where they get iffy and fearful and out of faith, because it's like it's happening to them, or
Right.
something not something that they're creating.
Well, and I think also one of the problems is the concept of who God is or what God is. Because people think, oh, if I pray to God, I'll get this done, as opposed to being the creative force in, that you're the power, not God is the power.
That's the thing. And then I think, like, well, if we are one with God, I need not ask anybody else but myself, because like, what's the point? Just be in the mirror like, hey, I'm here to ask, and then the same thing, when you look at it from that perspective, that's why sometimes I think with some of the work that I do is that because we are all one energy, that if you ask me to do something energetically for you, I can do that because I can feel that we are all one and be in that oneness with you, which allows for, as long as you let it be, that there are certain things that you can help other people with, And I think I do it in some ways through my work, but I think we do that when we do relationship. I think sometimes when we do intimacy, we bring that oneness in where you sort of bring yourself together with someone else.
Right. And that's something that I had read in this other book that I was reading, when they were talking about, if you believe that God is abundance and like she says in here, your unending supply, the question was, then why are you praying for things that are already yours?
Yeah.
Or the term was, why are you begging for things that are already yours?
Yeah, and then I always have a trouble with a lot of my clients that are more religious, and then they're like, well, I'm just afraid. And I'm like, well, do you believe in God? Yeah. Well, then do you trust your God? Yeah, of course. So explicitly, then what's the problem? Because if you believe and you trust, why are you questioning that it's going to be given to you? Like, it doesn't make you think God can't handle it. Like,
well, because they feel that there's some reason they're not worthy.
Well, I think there's a level of, but I don't, that's the other part when you really, pay attention to the teachings, that it's interpreted in the way it's projected, but there's a lot of projection about, condemnation and judgment days and things like that. And I think that it's misinterpreted as to there is no judgment. There is no right or wrong way. It's however you do it.
Right. So the question is, and that's the thing. I mean, that's what originally had kind of pointed me away from religion, was kind of the contradictions, because, you know, the Bible says that man was created in God's image and endowed with all the powers of life and death and heaven and earth, and given dominion over all things. But then somebody has a question of worthiness. How can you be endowed with all the powers of creation, and yet you're questioning your worthiness to receive or do or be a certain thing? It doesn't make sense. But that is not the words, that is on the person. Because
But it's
somewhere
also,
along there,
all right, go ahead.
well, somewhere along the line, they got off the track.
Yeah,
You
but I
know,
think it comes from being in this world, because I don't think anything godly is telling someone they're unworthy. It's people.
It's the church.
well, that's what I'm saying.
It's
Yeah.
people, whether it be through the church, whether it be kids at school. When when you were talking earlier, a lot of that power type of thing. That's what bullying is. I don't feel good about myself, so let's go pick on that kid because he's small or poor or whatever it might be, for the day, or he's eating a weird thing, like whatever. Let's just, so we can take the attention off of me, and I can feel like I've got some power. So I don't think it comes from that. I think it just comes from the messaging that we gain and we experience as we go through life. Who feels more, I don't know, who feels more worthy, the baby who's cries and gets picked up versus the one who's been sleep trained and cry it out, and because I don't, where does that come from?
Right.
And the funny thing with the bullying is that you'll see kids in school, because I taught for quite a few years, and you'll see kids in school and they'll pick on this one kid, and then he'll go find somebody else to pick on, so he feels like, I'm bigger than you. It's a very bad cycle that perpetuates itself.
It really
Right.
is.
But then the bigger question is, where did they learn that? Where did they learn the idea of bullying somebody else to make themselves feel powerful? And that is, just like you said, Carolyn, probably because at home, they're being made to feel powerless.
Or there's a
They're-
parent, it's two parents where one holds the power in the home, or
Right.
there's a figure in their life that they've seen, or they watch TV and that guy is really powerful and this is what he does, or he runs the country, or whatever it could be. And it's
Right.
like, then they think, yeah, that's the way to go at it. That's how you get it done. So I think there's a lot of things like, there's so many things that keep us going. I don't know. My husband was watching like some movie before dinner, and the whole time it just like had this music going like the whole time, and I'm just like, it was making me anxious but there are many things in this world designed to keep us fearful and anxiety ridden. And so then you also look at, hey, you know what? I've got a little anxiety, but I don't have as much as that guy. And so let me exploit that because it makes me feel better. I don't like it. Just sometimes it comes from just simple experience of ease of their own discord, feeling some kind of relief. I feel some relief from from feeling disempowered when I pick on this other person.
Right.
Now, it's interesting, we're talking about power and everything. I mean, I was watching, there was a scene in Dracula, and they were in this cafe. This isn't the Bela Lugosi, it was one of the many remakes, but they were in this cafe, and I just got thinking to myself, Dracula's sitting there in this like coffee shop, and knowing, I know it's in a negative way, but knowing that he's the most powerful thing in that shop. I mean, in the blink of an eye, he could destroy everyone, and this idea of power and just, but of course that's power corrupted in that case. But it's weird that we're talking about power because my friend Terry, she posted this thing, you look in these words, it's like the first words that you see, or
Mhm.
whatever. And it was like the first four words. And my first four words were connection, strength, power, and health. But I don't view myself as somebody that like craves power. I mean, I like connection, absolutely, and health, absolutely. But
You're looking at power over people. That doesn't necessarily, that's not a total definition of power.
correct,
Yeah.
And also, I got that as those are the things that you're drawn to, is the healthiness of the power and the strength of connection, because you're very much about connection and it's very healthy, and you do some sort of, you're very much into health, and that there's a great power in connection and strength.
well, thank you for clearing that up. That's a good way of looking at it. Yes. Again, I salute the divinity in both of you. Well, that's what I'm saying to people now. I said it to a girl at Redner's at the grocery store, because she said, how are you today? I said, I am outstanding, and I salute the divinity within you. And she just looked at me like a deer in the headlights. It's like, and then the head cocked like your dog does. It's like,
And then she told the manager, watch that one over there while I run
right,
this.
We've got a Hare Krishna and a t-shirt in here.
sir, put the peas down and leave the store.
You're saluting what at me?
I was never in the
Live in your
military. I don't want to hear about that. Oh, my goodness. But back to our regularly scheduled program.
And
And-
try namaste next time. It might go
Okay.
over better.
Namaste. Gesundheit. When one has made his demands upon the universal, he must be ready for surprises. Everything may seem to be going wrong when in reality it is going right. So you may not know why you're buying an Aboriginal drum. The moment. But there's obviously a good reason. Right?
Right.
Mhm.
So then she goes into a long story about loss, about the woman that had lost $2,000 and then she ended up getting it back. But again, this is where a lot of people, I think they trip themselves up, because they think, okay, this thing happened to me because of Carolyn. So my repayment, and I'm not talking about money, but whatever, if I feel that you did something wrong, you wronged me in some way, most people have the belief that I'm going to have to get rated by you. Anything else, if I'm rated by somebody else about that situation, that doesn't count. Unless it comes from Carolyn, it's not going to work. And I mean, do you think people buy into that crap? I lost $2,000 with this thing, so I got to get the 2,000 back from that.
Well, I think they do, because I think what they're thinking is, then I got away with something, so you should get it from me, not from somebody else. So but it's not coming. You're giving me $100. Remember earlier in the show,
Right.
$100.
But I gave you two.
Yeah, I know you did. I'm anxious.
But people's belief in that, though, that they have to get this, like that they lost something, then that's what they're focused on. They're focused on the loss. And then they're wondering why everything else around them, they used to be really busy in their business, but now business has dropped off. They used to be this and this, and now that's dropped off. but they don't connect the two, saying, look, I'm really focused on that I lost this money. And maybe that's affecting these other things because I'm continuing to lose. But sometimes they just don't put that together.
Oh, lots of times they don't put that together.
No,
It just becomes I'm having a streak of bad luck, or I can't catch a break, or because there, I think that it comes down to when you're of that type of thinking, there will always be an external which your issue is linked to.
right. And it's always pointing outside of yourself.
Always. So that's when somebody's of that type of mindset to that life happens to them, then they're going to look for the thing that caused this to happen to them and that to happen to them and what caused this to happen to me. But that just comes from not being a deliberate creator and believing in your own power.
Right.
I did
Exactly.
like her use of the Bank of the Universe. I thought that was a good,
Yes.
if we can remember that, that would be great to,
I like the Bank of the Universe.
good.
You know what?
Open an account there after the class, after the call.
What's that?
You can open an account there after the call.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. And they don't really require anybody can open an account.
No fees.
No fees, no worthiness, no anything. It's just, I want it. So man is here to prove God and to bear witness to the truth. And he can only prove God by bringing plenty out of lack and justice out of justice. Again, providing abundance, because that is your natural state, to be abundant. And most of that was taught away from us, that we are not abundant. We have to, that was the discussion at breakfast this morning. My father was talking about, somebody and saying, well, when are they going to get in the workforce? Because she has, kids, and her circumstances don't allow her to be, taking like a regular job. Now, my first defense with that thinking was this idea that you have to get a job and work for somebody. That bothers me, because that's not the way necessarily. That's a way. But, because he's talking about, well, the older she gets, if she waits for this, employers look at this and they're not going to hire somebody that does this and this and this. And it's like, first off, why are you even worried about it? And second off, none of that stuff is true. Because if you're qualified, it's, I don't even know where the hell I was going with that. I just, Bria's like,
well, because we just had this big conversation about how sometimes you're qualified and you don't get hired. So I don't know. It seemed like I was like, oh, it's not adding up.
no, because it was about the bringing plenty out of lack. And, he was seeing her in her state now as in lack. And then the job as being plenty, but he wasn't connecting that that's possible to do. You gotta.
Yeah, but he doesn't connect with that message.
No.
So why, but you, I don't even know your dad, and I already know that from just being in these classes. So I don't know why you keep going back and hoping that he's going to connect with it.
I don't. I don't. It's like we had a thing about science today. And I said, Dad, but it's science. It's not questions. It's scientifically proven. He said, no. Somebody can do the same exact thing, do the same exact test, and have it and look at it, interpret it differently. I said, no, they couldn't. If they did everything exactly the same way, then it's going to turn out to be the exact same result. The only way they could interpret it differently is if they did something differently. You
But
know,
is that true? Because what if you were looking for a different result?
well, if you were looking for a different result, it would probably cause you to do something a little differently, not majorly. But if every day I walk down to the corner and stick my face in the puddle, my face is going to be wet. Doesn't matter what your opinion is of it. Doesn't matter anything about it. If that's what I continually do, that's going to be the same result. My face will always be wet with puddle water.
Yeah, but
Now,
that's not science.
no,
That's
I
stupid.
don't know it. Yeah, that's just dumb. Stop putting your face in the damn puddle. What's wrong with you?
no, but two different people, two different, what? What's
Why would
this?
you
What's
Why
this?
would you use this example?
I don't know.
Because two different people looking upon that
There's the dog from
two
earlier.
people, even the dog says, I don't stick my face in the puddle water.
Yeah,
But if two people were
I'm
looking upon
Hang
that,
in here.
let me get it out, Carolyn.
Okay.
But if two different people are looking upon that, there's no way the two of them can draw different conclusions. The conclusion is that my face is wet with puddle water. One couldn't say, well, I don't believe that his face is wet with puddle water. I mean, you're seeing the same thing. There's no different way to interpret it. Now, you could interpret the reasons why this dumbass keeps going down there and sticking his face in the puddle. Yeah, you could subjectively talk about that, but the result is wet face, puddle water every
yeah, but
time.
that's not what your dad said. Your dad said science experiments are manipulated to derive the result that they want. So they're going to do the same thing over and over again to get what they want. That's what I interpreted what your dad is saying.
Right.
And
But
I
what I'm
believe that
saying, if
because I
you're
think
doing-
that when you put forth a hypothesis, your goal is to prove the hypothesis, and that's all it is. And it doesn't take into account anything else. So what I think your dad is trying to say is because the science is designed to with a hypothesis to prove that one thing, it isn't meant to disprove this other thing.
Right. And what I'm saying is if somebody does a scientific experiment, if they do the same thing exactly the same way, the same experiment, they're going to get the same result.
Yeah, but I don't think that's what your dad is arguing. I think he's arguing that, of course, they're going to get the same result because they're proving what they want to prove. So yes, the same result will come based on that. I don't think that's up for dispute. But I think what he's saying is that people and scientists do this. They choose the hypothesis for what they want to prove, and they look for evidence to support the hypothesis. And unless it's really, really radical, then they just can prove that is a true thing. They don't have to disclose the other stuff.
Well, he's in this camp though with a lot of things that they don't need evidence. It's just people say it. So we're not going to get to, we're not, yes, that group,
Yeah.
we're not going to get too deep into that. But yes. So then of course that follows through with everything. You know, it doesn't need evidence. It just needs to be somebody's opinion is fact.
Somebody has to say it, and it's true.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, that happens a lot with him. Like, I'll say something to him, like about health. I'll say something and, but then he'll hear it on TV or hear it later from somebody else. And then it's like, oh yeah, so-and-so said, oh, I remember you said something about that. Oh yeah. But now all of a sudden it's credible.
You're
And-
always going to be a son, Rodney. You're always going
Correct.
to be a son. And so you have less credibility than some other people a lot of times, you know.
Exactly.
And that's just a dad and son relationship.
Well, it's not just dad and sons, it's everybody because people see you a certain way.
Well,
And
that's
if
true.
you,
Yeah,
now, like, you have a court reporter business. Now, if
Right.
all of a sudden you started telling people, about taking care of their heart and how to, grow hair, they're probably gonna say, well, that's interesting, Carolyn, but they don't see you as that person that, that does that advice. Because
True.
you have no background with that to them.
exactly.
Now, a
Maybe
stranger,
if she was bald and grew hair, she could still do it.
I have
right,
a thick head of hair. That did not happen.
where she could say, yes, I was bald, the bowling ball. And I've been rubbing this stuff into my head like a dry rub.
I could.
And look, I
I
have had the harvest,
with magic elixir. This is a great idea.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. But there will be some people that still wouldn't believe the evidence in front of them.
True.
Well, what do you think this whole pandemic is? There's all kinds of stuff. I think there's actual experts out there and people don't believe them. That's just life. It's what resonates for someone. So I think that's just vibrational frequencies lining up or not lining up.
Well, that reminds me of something that I want to say in the post game, because I don't want to say it on here. Just remind me about that.
Okay.
Oh, we're already to the end of the book.
Yeah.
End of the chapter. We still have one more chapter, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're at the end of this chapter. And anything else to say about this chapter before we stop the recording?
No, I think it was a good night.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay. Bree is already always
Because
so
you want
definite.
what you have to say, Rodney.
Well, I don't know. The only thing I think what we missed was that thing about how she said about disease. That's the only thing I thought was hugely important, that you can create remedy to disease.
Right, because your disease is connected to basically what you're thinking.
Yep, pretty much.
And if you got stinking thinking, then you got stinking results.
I thought you were going to come up with something catchier than that. I was hoping.